Last night I said how New South Wales Premier Gladys Berejiklian had been reckless in her decision to let a bill go ahead to decriminalise abortion, a bill that's already passed the lower house in New South Wales, despite being opposed by almost two-thirds of her own Liberal MPs there. Now, this bill has stirred up a backbench revolt because, to be frank, it is close to infanticide. For instance, under this bill, a baby can be aborted, killed, even just one day before birth. And if they are accidentally aborted but still alive, they can be left to die. Now, this bill also allows parents to abort babies they think are of the wrong gender, which inevitably seems to mean girls. Yesterday, Berejiklian caved a bit, delaying the vote in the upper house by 3 weeks to try to sort out some sort of, I don't know, compromise or buy some time. And hours after she did that, thousands of pro-life protesters surrounded Parliament, chanting and holding signs.
Stand for life! 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 Stand for life!
Among those protesters, interestingly, former Nationals leader Barnaby Joyce.
That person does not deserve to die in the corner of a room if it's born alive. It deserves to be saved. It deserves to be fought for. It deserves to be loved.
One of the speakers of that protest was Rachael Wong. She's a barrister and adjunct lecturer at the University of Notre Dame and Managing Director of the Women's Forum Australia. She joins me now. Rachael, it's great to have you on the show. Thank you so much for coming. What's your problem with this bill?
Oh gosh, I've got a lot of problems with this bill, Andrew. For starters, it's incredibly extreme. As we know by now, it allows abortion effectively for any reason until any stage of pregnancy. It removes protections for women and children. It completely ignores the harmful impact of abortion on women, and it fails to address the real problems that women are facing.
But the bill's backers are saying, well, look, you know, New South Wales, the last state to decriminalise abortion, and this bill is just based on one that was passed in Queensland. So what's the problem? Are you satisfied with that? Well, it worked in Queensland. Why not have it in New South Wales?
I don't think that's a good argument at all, no. I think if we look at the legislation that was passed in Queensland and Victoria back in 2008, both of those states passed similarly radical and regressive legislation. Legislation that allows abortion at any stage for any reason has no place in a civilised society. Not only does it give no recognition or protection whatsoever to the child, it also removes protections for women and does nothing to actually try to address the issues that they're facing. I think in this day and age, we should be able to do so much better both for women and for children. So no, I don't think saying Queensland and Victoria have done it, let's do it as well. I think this is an opportunity for our state to look at what do we want? Do we want to go down that path of some of the most extreme abortion legislation in the world? This is legislation that allows abortion on request till 22, 24 weeks in Victoria, 22 weeks here. That stage, you've got a fully formed baby. And then, as I said, up until any stage after that with very, very limited restrictions.
Now, well, opponents of this bill also say, you know, you mentioned Victoria, that there was a study in Victoria in 2018 from La Trobe University. So it actually showed that girls there are aborted much more often than boys, and particularly when it comes to parents who migrated from China and India. But then when the New South Wales bill was being reviewed, we had experts there saying, well, that's not an issue in New South Wales. Why would it be an issue in Victoria but not in New South Wales? I don't get that.
Well, that's exactly right. And I think with the dearth of data that we have at the moment, there's no possible way you can say it's not an issue here. Even if it wasn't an issue, the fact that we are passing a piece of legislation which effectively says that sex selection is allowed, I think that's problematic in itself.
Now, so what changes would you... I mean, I know you're against abortion in many forms, but obviously there's a lot of public support for abortion. What changes, minimal changes, would you accept to this bill and you think, well, look, I'll hold my nose and I will stop protesting?
I firmly believe that abortion is never a positive solution for women and obviously never a positive solution for her child. But if the bill was to go ahead, there would at the very least need to be protections against discriminatory abortions, so on the basis of sex. I think we also need to look at the issue of disability as well. You know, we're in a society that's supposed to be becoming more progressive on that issue for people with disabilities, but this bill, as well as allowing abortion for any reason, including sex selection, would also allow abortion for any reason in terms of disability as well. So that's anything from, you know, a cleft palate to Down syndrome to something more severe, but there's a very wide spectrum there. I think we need to introduce a much more robust informed consent regime for women who are facing an abortion because of the particular vulnerabilities that they face. I think that we need to continue to include criminal penalties for doctors who perform abortions outside of the law. Removing those protections removes protections for women, and of course it removes protections for children as well. If this law was simply about removing criminalisation for women, then we could simply make an amendment to the Crimes Act to do that.
Well, what about that ultimate argument that seems to, well, shuts up a lot of men? This is just about a woman's right to choose. Right to choose to do with her body what she wishes. And what right have the rest of us to say what she does with it?
Yeah, this is an argument that we hear time and time again. And honestly, it's an argument that's getting old. We've come so far in the last... I mean, supporters of this bill talk about the current law being archaic and how we've come so far in the last 100 years. And I would agree we have come a long way in the last 100 years. We've been exposed to so much more scientific evidence about the reality of the humanity of the unborn child, and the fact that when we talk about it being a woman's body and a woman's choice, well, actually, there are two bodies there. There's the woman's body and there's the child's body. So you've got two people to take into consideration. That's a scientific, not a philosophical or theological fact. But on the other hand, you also have the fact that in so many situations, abortion is not a choice for women. You have women who are vulnerable to coercion from their partners who tell them that, you know, if you don't go through this abortion, I'm going to leave you, or something much worse than that. You have women who they don't feel that they can afford to raise their child because they're living in poverty, or they feel like they've got restrictions around their current family situation, or they're in a situation of domestic violence. There are so many pressures on women that we need to really be addressing to give them genuine choice. And I think the mantra, my body, my choice, is just, it doesn't work anymore.
Rachael Wong, thank you so much indeed for your time.
Thank you, Andrew.